Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to another episode of r/EntitledPeople. And in today's episode, you'll hear a story about a lovely Karen who tries to steal from her neighbor. And of course, guys, she gets caught. And there's gonna be two other ridiculous stories as well, so warm up those neck muscles, as you don't want to strain your neck from shaking your head too hard, guys. With that said, let's dive into the stories and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So this happened the summer prior to the crisis that's going on. I live in a small beach town, and at the time, I was at the beach with my brother and our friends. Our two friends, Kyle and Josh, were surfing, and Luna and I were sunbathing on the beach. It was hot and about 100 degrees, so we were in bikini tops. We were talking about the usual stuff when I noticed some teenager who looked like he was about 15 or 16 watching us. Now, Luna and I ignored him, but only until he started getting closer and closer to us. The guy starts to get too close for comfort. He's about an arm's distance away from Luna and me. I then asked if there was something he wanted from us because he'd been watching us for at least 15 minutes. The guy never looked at my face. He just looked at my chest and said, "No, there's nothing I want." The guy's mom, our Karen, came over to Luna and me at this point and asked if we would cover up. Now, Luna looked at Karen with a "really" expression, and Karen had that entitled face. Karen says, "It's only fair. You're distracting my son, and I'm afraid you'll seduce him with your slutwear." Now, Luna and I looked at each other, and we burst out laughing. I know it was kinda rude, but when would you hear "cover up" at the beach during a heat wave? Now at this point, Kyle and Josh comes back to us, and Josh asked if everything was okay. Karen pitched a fit that Luna and I were purposely being seductive and flashing her son. We told her, "Only in your son's dreams, lady. We were not flashing your son." At this point, Karen sees a patrolling cop on the boardwalk and waved him down. But little did she know, the officer was actually my cousin. He walks over and waves to Luna and me and asked if everything was alright and if there was a problem. Karen looks smug and she says, "Officer, these sluts were indecently exposing themselves in public. You need to arrest them for exposing themselves to a minor." My cousin looked to Luna and I and then back to Karen and said, "Ma'am, my cousin is not a slut. We're at a beach and my cousin is allowed to wear a bikini." Karen's jaw dropped. She then grabs her son's arm and pulled him away while Kyle, me, Josh, and Luna were grinning. I didn't just soak up the sun. I basked in the awesomeness of my police officer cousin. My friends, this is the kind of thing you need to nip in the bud. Karen really needs to step up and teach her son not to stare, to laugh, or make a person uncomfortable. Like, come on. He was 15 or 16 years old, and he should know better than that. Okay guys, with that said though, scrolling through the comments, this article was linked and it's absolutely outrageous. So the article is, apparently a 2-year-old girl wasn't allowed to wear a sundress to daycare because boys might get a little too excited, if you catch my drift. I'll link the article in the description box, but here's the gist of it. So I'm gonna post a picture up and this is what she wore to daycare. So long story short, a mom gets upset that the daycare wanted sundresses to have at least 1-inch wide straps on the shoulders. Spaghetti straps are not allowed. The owner of the daycare comes out and says, "We have 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old boys here, and girls. Do you want the other kids to be looking at your daughter? Not me. They're going to." So the mom does fight back at that, and the daycare of course did hand her a termination letter, kicking her 2-year-old out of the daycare for her mom's behavior. But how crazy is that, guys? Now, I don't know anything about sundresses, but spaghetti straps versus 1-inch straps, does it really matter? I'll definitely link the whole article in the description box if you guys want to give it a read. You know, I've been lucky with not encountering Karens up until recently. Honestly, I thought the internet over-exaggerated these crazy entitled people. I came to the sad truth that these people do exist, and my faith in humanity dropped just a tad more. And just a little more as I'm typing this, as I'm coming to the realization that some of these people are raising kids of their own. Anyways, I work in the solar industry, mainly residential as a service technician. Whenever something goes wrong with a solar PV system, I'm the guy they send out to fix it. I've been doing this long enough to have the knowledge and skill to complete an entire installation by myself, with roof pitch and module count within reason, that is. So I went out with one of the crews for an installation as they were short a few guys. So myself and 2 of the other technicians I work with volunteered to help them out. It seemed like a pretty standard job. There was 40+ panels and not a steep roof. Now I'm thinking, okay, we should be finished and back at the shop by 4 or 5 p.m. So we arrive at the house that looked to be in a pretty rich neighborhood. The homeowner greets us and even offered to grab us all breakfast and then headed off to work. It was a good day so far. So we set up an exclusion zone to prevent anybody from coming too close to the house, as equipment, tools, etc. might fall off the roof. I'm on the ground working on building the electrical portion of the system. I've got my music playing and all is good. I've got myself in a good rhythm. I then notice a child, who could have been no older than 7, dart past the red tape we put up and heads toward a ladder to the roof and starts to play on it. Now, like a human being with common sense, I ran over and told the kid that he couldn't play on this and that the red tape was up so he couldn't get hurt. And the moment you've all been waiting for, his mom appears. Man, she had it all. The haircut, the sunglasses, and she had the worst spray tan I've personally seen. She was literally orange. So Karen says, "What are you doing? He just wants to play with your tools." I told her, "Ma'am, I can't allow him to play with our tools. Also, I can't have him or yourself pass that red tape. We've put that up for your safety." Karen then says, "Oh, he'll be fine. Are you trying to tell me how to parent? You think my son is dumb enough to play where he can get hurt?" Now me, who just lost a couple of brain cells from her response, said, well, that doesn't exclude the fact that accidents do happen and things might fall off the roof. We can't risk anyone who's not supposed to be on the job to be hurt. Now please leave, as this is an active work site." So Karen then grabs her child's arms and stormed off, while also tearing off a section of the exclusion zone tape and storming over to her house 2 doors down. I stood by our trailer to take a breather and began chain smoking. Now I try not to get stressed out too much. Being my job is already stressful as is, but I have zero patience for people with no common sense, especially if they're a parent. A little while later, panels are prepped and the roof is ready for installation. We're now just finishing up the electrical before placing the panels into position. I'm running between the basement and the outside area, and I get back outside, punching in some wires, when I hear one of my guys yelling from the roof. The guy says, "Hey, what are you doing?" That immediately caught my attention, as I thought the little kid had run past the exclusion zone tape once again. But my eyes caught a guy running down the road with a solar panel in tow. He thankfully wasn't very fast while holding the panel. So I run to the guy and attempt to rip it from his hands, while at the same time trying not to let it hit the ground. I was able to get my hands on it, but this kid actually put up a fight and tossed the solar panel at me and starts to swing at me. I go into full self-defense mode. The kid went to take another shot at me, so I grabbed him. I had the kid down on the ground, pinned, and out comes Karen running, screaming like a banshee. The typical, "I'm calling the cops, you just assaulted my son." And at this point, I asked myself if this was really happening. I told her, "Hey, your son came by to steal a solar panel and he punched me in the chest. I had to defend myself." Karen says, "I told him to grab the solar panel. My neighbor said I could take one and try it out to see if I like it. She paid for it." At this point, my guys are at my aid, and I tell them to call the cops and keep Karen away from me. As we wait for the cops to show up, this orange-skinned lunatic is screaming how she's gonna sue all of us and blah blah blah. Cops arrived about 10 minutes later, and as soon as Karen sees them, she screams bloody murder, saying, "Why would you call the police on me? My friend said I could have this." Now, I remove myself from the kid, and the cops split all of us up to take our statements. Karen goes with the story of how her neighbor said she could borrow a solar panel to try it out. Now, even if he did say that, which he didn't, the neighbor didn't give her permission to try it at all. You can't just let someone take a solar panel, because they still belong to the company. Most people who buy solar finance the panels and pay them off over the course of the next couple of years. It works a lot like financing a car. Now, it gets to the point where the cops ask if I want to press charges for assault, and I gladly say yes. I have no idea when the court proceedings are going to be taking place, but I honestly just want this over and done with. Now, I found out the kid who was attacking me was 18 years old, legally an adult, so charges are being filed against him. The homeowner also told us that he's never talked to that woman in his life, and I have no idea what Karen's intentions were with the solar panel. If she just planned to slap it on her house, she's just as stupid as she is entitled. My friends, what in the world? The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, my friends. A lot of thieves are idiots, and this proves it. Well, like, what the heck are you planning to do with one single solar panel, Karen? If you can even get it to work, which you probably can't, and I absolutely love this comment right here. It's so stupid. What's she gonna do? Lean it against her house and wonder where the electricity is? That's exactly what she's planning to do. I can't believe she got her son to go steal for her, guys. Like, she should be charged as well. Now, this story happened about 5 years ago. My fiance and I have been together for 7 years already. At the time, she was my girlfriend, and I was fully aware that her mom was a few fries short of a Happy Meal, but this was the pinnacle of her behavior. So my girlfriend, let's call her Ellie, and I weren't living together at the time. She just stayed over from time to time when she could. I took her home after she'd been staying with me for a couple of days and was heading to work. But shortly after, just before getting to work, I get a phone call from her and I can tell she's in tears. Apparently, when she got inside, her mom immediately blew up on her about being gone for so long, even though it was only 2 days, and she did tell her mom that she was going to be gone and kept in contact with her while she was gone. Now, Ellie's mom's house was pretty much your stereotypical crazy cat lady house. The house was badly decaying. There was cats all over the place, going to the bathroom in random places and whatnot. When Ellie gets to her room, she realizes that while she was gone, the cats have peed all over her clean clothes. But whatever. Ellie decided just to bag them up and she would wash them the next time she came to my place, as her mom didn't have a functioning washer at the time. And apparently, that really set her off. Her mom goes into a rage, thinking that Ellie was bagging her clothes because she was planning to go back to my place that night for another few days. So she stomps into her room, grabs the bag, rips it open, and flungs the clothes all over the room, screaming at Ellie that she's not going anywhere. Now, I do want to mention at the time that Ellie was 24 years old, so it wasn't like she was some teenager that mom had to helicopter over. And that's when Ellie runs outside and calls me. She was so upset and didn't know what to do. She told me her mom had been going crazy without her since she'd been gone. The sink was full of dishes, takeout boxes all over the house, the bathroom was a mess, and she expected Ellie to clean it all up. I told her to go ahead and get the things she needs, and I'll take her to my place. She said she would love that. I told my work I was going to be late due to an emergency, and turned around and went to pick her up. When I pulled up back to the house, Ellie was in the driveway crying. I went and hugged her, told her it was going to be okay and that she could stay with me as long as she wanted. She went back inside to get her things. As I was outside waiting, I hear the door open again and went to help Ellie with her things. And uh-oh, it's her mom. Her mom comes stomping out with her crazy hair frizzled in an old nightgown. She beelines for me and gets right in my face screaming, "My daughter said I need to come out here and ask what you think of me. You got something to say? Huh? You think I'm trash, don't you? That's what you think, isn't it?" Now again, up until now, I'd completely kept my mouth shut and I was trying to maintain that. But this woman was up in my face, freaking out and was tormenting the woman that I loved. So I finally looked at her and broke my silence saying, "Why do you treat her like this?" Now at this, she gasped and said, "What do you mean? That's my daughter and I worship the ground she walks on." Oh really? So treating her like a slave, calling her a slut, tramp, and whore is worship? Again, she gasped and said, "I would never say anything like that. You need to get off my property." Okay, so I almost never find myself in situations like this, so I'm not used to it. I say that because after she said this, I pretty much saw red, and I'm not proud of it, but I just started shouting every curse word in the book I could possibly think of at the top of my lungs, while she storms back into the house. But thankfully, that only lasted a few seconds, and I immediately calmed down. So finally, Ellie comes back out with her stuff and we load up the car and I assume it's over. But Ellie turns to me and says, "Ugh, I'm sorry, but we can't leave yet." I ask her, "Why not?" And she says, "Mom called the cops." Oh my goodness. I sort of had a feeling this would happen, no big deal, so we just sat and waited for the cop to arrive. About half an hour later, a cop car pulls up. And right when he does, Mom comes out of the house and oh my god, she was doing exactly what you think. She instantly puts on this fragile, old lady act. Hunched over, walking slowly, the whole 9 yards. And of course, when the police officer asks her what happened, she has to pitch her entire medical chart to the guy. And Ellie will tell you that this woman has faked being terminally ill for 12 years. So when she finally gets done trying to milk this poor guy for sympathy, she tells her version of what happened. She says, "Officer, he comes onto my property and verbally attacked me. He's awful to me, sir, and I've never even done anything to him. He's trying to turn my daughter against me and is trying to convince her to leave. You should arrest him for trying to kidnap her. Now, at first, he seems somewhat sympathetic to her until Mom says that you should arrest him for trying to kidnap her. And then he turns to Ellie and asks, "Ma'am, I'm assuming you know this man?" Ellie replies, "Yes, sir." "Are you in a relationship with him?" "Yes, sir." "And how old are you?" Ellie then says, "Sir, I'm 24. Now, this was my favorite part because the officer looked up from his notepad with a look of, "Wait, what?" Now, obviously, he was thinking that Ellie was a minor or something based off of how her mom was acting, but quickly realized what he was dealing with. Eventually, he turns to me and says, "Okay, sir, please give me your version of what happened." And I did. The police officer then puts his notepad away, turns to me, and just FYI, he says the following with this heavy tone of, "I don't believe you're in the wrong at all, but I do have to say this as a formality." The officer then says, "Well, OP, she doesn't want you on her property, so you need to be aware that if you come back here, you can technically be charged with trespassing. Do you understand this as I've explained it?" I told him, "Absolutely, sir." The entitled mom then comes in and says, "But sir, I want to press charges. He's kidnapping my daughter." The officer then looks at her and says, "He didn't do anything illegal, ma'am. This is not kidnapping. Your daughter is willingly going with him, as they're in a relationship." He then turns to Ellie and asks, "You are willingly going with him, right?" Ellie replies, "Of course, he's my boyfriend." The mom chimes in again and says, "But he verbally assaulted me." The officer tells her, "I understand that, and while that was ill-advised, that's not something I can arrest him for. He agrees he will not come back on your property without your direct permission." The mom then says, "Ugh, Ellie, come back inside." Ellie puts up a fight saying, "What? No. You heard the police officer. OP's leaving and you're staying here." Officer then says, "Whoa, ma'am, I didn't say that at all. Your daughter is a full-grown adult. She has every right to go wherever she wants, whenever she wants." Mom at this point squares up to the officer, points a finger at him and screams, "Not as long as she lives under my roof. I told her she needs to stay here, so she needs to stay." The officer tells her, "No, ma'am, that's not how it works. If she wants to go stay with her boyfriend, there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop her." So the entitled mom starts to fake crocodile tears and stomps into the house in defeat. Ellie and I thanked the officer, got into the car, and left, and yeah, we've been living together ever since. So there is a happy ending. Believe it or not, the entitled mom isn't really much of an entitled mom anymore. Over the years since that day, she's actually decided to make an effort to try to improve herself. I guess she realized that I'm a good guy after all, and are actually taking care of her daughter, and that if she didn't make changes, she would lose her relationship with Ellie. So mom starts taking advantage of her medical coverage, and went to see her psychiatrist and got medicine for a mental illness that she actually had, as opposed to ones that she actually would make up. Since then, she has actually gotten way better. And she's got a boyfriend that's extremely kind and treats Ellie as though she were his own daughter. So basically, the entitled mom isn't really an entitled mom anymore. We actually get along very well and we see them frequently, and we do help out whenever we can. We actually look back on the early years when she was in fact an entitled mom and we laugh. So not only is everybody getting along well, we can actually share cringe stories and happily laugh about them. Now isn't that adorable, my friends? An entitled story where a mother-in-law actually turns out to be not too shabby after all. Listen guys, the stories don't all have to turn out bad and leave your blood boiling, right? I'm glad they put the past behind them and the mom got the medical help that she needed. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today, and thank you for coming to hang out with me and listening to these wacky stories. If you missed the last episode of our /entitled people, a Karen abandons her daughter on a cruise ship. No, she doesn't. She abandons her daughter for a cruise and regrets it big time. My friends, check it out if you haven't, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.